back to Beatline. We're talking about beating modern day stress with the principles of martial arts. Our guest is martial arts master Steve Jones. Look at that, I even had more control over my fist. One thing I want to talk about is just a little bit of your background. You were working with Sly Stallone. How in the world did that happen?
Well, I lost 4 or 5 years working as a bouncer in London, in the UK.
I was a bartender. I can identify.
Yeah, so I was working on the doors of a lot of the top London clubs, and that's where I met Sly and his entourage, and he wanted somebody to go around with him and to the London clubs, and that's how that came about, and it just grew from there, really. It was during Judge Dredd when he was filming that.
When he was filming the
mid-90s, yeah.
Now, during that, was that sort of where you realized the importance of control and the importance of being able to use self-discipline to be able to deal with large crowds around someone like Sly?
Yeah, that's it's another situation that one has to adapt to, as we were speaking earlier on about people's work. In that situation, we have conflict a lot of the times, but it's not really violent. It's just people trying to grab a piece of him, or any celebrity for that matter. So you have to step in between them and those people, but usually in a way that's not too offensive, so that you don't make the actual celebrity themselves look bad.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got to be done in a nice way.
Yeah, you don't want to look like the big mean bouncer.
Yeah, no, that's it. But the one thing about control that which is a word that you've used, that I think really an aspect of it that needs to be made clear is that control really comes through relaxation. It doesn't come through a rigid holding of anything. It really is a movement of letting go, of coming back to the breathing, of relaxing, and focusing the mind on what's really in hand. And in that way we can see that it's very similar to playing music, something on stage, where you have to relax and go with the flow, or in a way dancing well, I think.
Really? Something my family's always corrected me on is my posture. Yeah. My dad says I slouch. I look like one of those kids in a hip-hop music video, and I think, Dad, I work at an urban radio station that comes with my job, but they're always bothering me. Sit up, posture. Posture is really important.
Hugely.
And do you want to get into a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, we saw a little bit of posture on the
Actually, for most people, working at a desk really does a number on their posture, and you'll find that whether you're in an office situation or you work at a radio station, posture is important, and we have some suggestions from Steve on how to improve that, so take a look at this.
Another really good place is activities where you know that your posture or your breathing may be affected, and one of the ones that we all have to deal with is sitting at a desk working at a computer. It's important that you bring your feet so they're flat on the ground. Okay? This immediately changes the angle of the pelvis. And then this area here of the thoracic region, just bringing it in. And just gradually moving the shoulders back here. Okay? So that what happens is, as this occurs, is that the arms become free, and the tendons, which are moving, the fingers making those very fine movements to type with or move your mouse, that's another big one, or your Game Boy, of course. All of this can be done within the space of about 10 seconds. And probably what you'll notice is that you'll forget about it after a while and begin to slump back down again. So hopefully, if you are meditating correctly, your awareness will alert you of this, and you'll be able to defend against poor posture.
When you're watching somebody talk about posture, automatically you all of a sudden just try to fix your posture. In fact, the director said everybody in the control room, as soon as they saw that, he could see them backing up and correcting their posture. Your posture has a lot to do with how people judge you too.
It has a lot to do with your poise, absolutely, and it has a heck of a lot to do with how you breathe.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The length of the spine is really, really important for the correct working of the lungs, and indeed all of the internal organs, because it sets the distance. The important thing about posture, though, is that one finds a sensation of it from the inside, and that's what the meditation is about. So you build a sensation of your posture in a straight position, because the body actually loves it when it's really poised well, because it takes very, very little energy to hold it up. But unfortunately, what's happened with most of us is that people have, when we were a child, said, oh, sit up straight and sit at your desk straight and work hard and all of
So
the rest
mentally,
of it.
we don't want to do it.
Nah, you don't want anything to do with that kind of work, and the body is very, very lazy in that way. But if you awaken the actual sensation of it inside, the body begins to gravitate quite back to it quite naturally. But then you have to defend about it. That's an important point that was in that little clip there, is that you are going to forget again, and you are going to turn into a lump of jelly and slouch. But
So you just got to correct
be
yourself.
correct again.
We got Quasi on the line from Hamilton. Hey, what's going on, Quasi? How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. You got a comment?
Actually, I have a question, and it's about breathing.
Okay.
It's concerned with the type of breathing you use in like the martial arts or even yoga. And my question is, when I practice that type of breathing, the deep breathing from your diagram, and even how in yoga they say you should, inhale for about maybe 3 or 4 seconds and then exhale for the same amount. I find that I have difficulty with that, where it's kind of hard. For me, I feel like when I'm doing like the long breath, I already feel like I have to exhale before the time is up, and I get sometimes dizzy or kind of lightheaded. And so my question is, maybe I'm doing like using a wrong technique, or what's your advice on that?
Well, it's an excellent question, and one I'm very glad that somebody's brought up.
Thank you, Quasi.
The most important thing about this long breath cycle is that you allow it to find its natural rhythm. I cannot emphasize that enough. That just keep the mouth closed and breathe naturally through the nose. What you mustn't do is start to do things like, count for 3 as you breathe in, or count for a number, or change artificially what the breath wants to do, because that will create lightheadedness. There's a very, very subtle balance between CO2 and oxygen in the bloodstream, and that can be put out. And if that goes out, the whole body starts to go out.
The whole body
Yeah.
does.
So the best thing really is to relax and just allow the breath to find itself.
Relax sounds like it's the key. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to cut you off, Steve. We're out of time. But listen, if you want to get more information about Steve Jones and the body, mind, spirit system, check out his book, The Intelligent Warrior, or log on to bmsmartialart.com. Steve, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
I will breathe and sit up much straighter now that I met you. Listen, if you want to be heard after today's show, make sure you leave